Welcome, nutritionradio.org listeners. This is Lonnie Lowry, a university nutrition professor of over 20 years and podcast host of long-running shows like Iron Radio. Come on in.
Trends in Science.
Hey, everybody. Well, our trend in science today is going to be about the progress that's being made in obesity. The first piece sets it up. The second piece is going to talk about early stages of a drug that might be capitalizing on this GLP-1 craze that you're hearing a lot about, even from Hollywood celebrities. But it's also sort of bringing it into a sober reality. Let's start with this first piece, though. Significant findings related to obesity. This is from Vanderbilt University and spread through Science Daily. There is a research network that's funded by the American Heart Association to study obesity and train future obesity-focused investigators. And it's published some findings in the Journal of the American Heart Association. And some of this work is being called the birth of new collaborations and research partnerships to propel the field forward. What caught my eye in all of this is that a lot of this has to do with the prevalence of overweight in obesity and how bad it's going to get. As a longtime university professor, I can tell you I was regularly upping the percentage of people who were overweight and or obese in the United States. We used to say it was about a third. It was 33% or so, one of the numbers I remember on some of my slides that weren't that old. Now it says the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports the prevalence of obesity in the U.S. at 42.4% in 2018. And current estimates indicating global prevalence of overweight and obesity, so overweight not quite as dramatic in body mass index, right, or adiposity as obese, but overweight plus obesity globally may exceed 57% by 2030. So this working group is collectively taking several steps toward fully understanding the causes of obesity, and there's some new hormonal discoveries that we'll touch on, and we've been touching on with the whole GLP-1 and different hormone interventions, but they're looking to discover new therapeutic interventions, identify biomarkers so they can track obesity or the success of weight loss. One of the things they did focus on, as I've been alluding to, is the glucagon-like peptide 1 receptor. So it was determined that changes in the way that this GLP-1 receptor signals or communicates with cells, either from genetic variation or drug-like molecules, might be able to help cells respond to metabolic stress. And you're hearing about it so much, including here on nutritionradio.org in the past, because these GLP-1 receptor agonists, stimulators, protect the heart and its arteries. They decrease appetite, which is one of the main reasons people are taking them. They do quite a few very interesting things. So that's going to set us up for this next piece. This is from the American Chemical Society. My personal bias when I read this is that there's a little bit of maybe commercial interest. Well, of course there is. It's a discovery. But in any case, a new class of compounds could partly mimic what gastric bypass or other bariatric surgeries can do as far as reducing weight dramatically, lowering blood glucose, that sort of thing. These are injectable compounds that apparently avoid the side effects of nausea and vomiting that are common with current weight loss and diabetes drugs. Some of this is coming from Robert Doyle, who's a PhD and a principal investigator on this project that's being promulgated, and also a developer of this new class of drug. It says some of the benefits of bariatric surgeries are linked to the post-bypass surgery change in the gut's secretion of certain hormones, like GLP-1 and peptide YY, that signals fullness, curbs appetite, normalizes blood sugar. Currently, drugs that aim to replicate this effect primarily activate the GLP-1 receptor, but many people can't tolerate those drugs, and there's some pretty grim percentage of people who are off of them within a year of starting them. But this new injectable peptide drug, GEP44, early animal work suggests that it's caused obese rats to eat up to 80% less than they would typically eat. By the end of one 16-day study, apparently they lost 12% of their body mass. That's 3 times the amount that was lost by rats treated with liraglutide, an injected drug that stimulates GLP-1 receptor only, or at least principally. Anyway, GEP44 in rats and shrews, and They're partly using shrews, it looks like, because they're capable of vomiting, unlike rats. Anyway, no sign of nausea and vomiting with this multi-receptor stimulating kind of drug, this progress, if you will. We'll see where this goes when it starts being looked at in primates and in people, but it's always fascinating to look at these fat loss drugs. One problem is that GEP44 has a half-life in the body of only about an hour, but again, Doyle's group is looking at a peptide with a much longer half-life, so you could inject it maybe just once or twice per week. Other benefits from these peptide treatments could be that they reduce blood sugar by pulling glucose into muscle tissue. Very interesting, and again, that's an approach that athletes have actually taken with different hormonal manipulations and doping in the past. And of course, it says the researchers have filed for patents on these compounds, and they plan to test the peptides in primates. For those of you who might want to comment, you can go to Lawnman07 within YouTube. You can leave a review on iTunes as well. It's very helpful for us. But one of the things I'm interested in hearing what you guys might think is something that's always in the back of my mind with these sorts of interventions is, so you're just taking shots twice a week and then you're losing a bunch of weight and not necessarily changing your lifestyle. I know that's profitable for big pharma, but is there some kind of a justice issue there where people aren't actually learning and using discipline to try to eat better? Maybe there are situations, I'm sure there are, where it's really called for, where quote-unquote diet and exercise don't work. But I'm always interested to hear people's opinions on this. Please let me know. And thanks very much for listening. The NutritionRadio.org podcast is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, check with your physician, nutritionist, or qualified exercise physiologist in order to make the progress that you need.